And we're live now. So good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to Ubuntu on Air. My name is Jose, and I'm an Ubuntu member broadcasting live from Peru. Today we have another Juju Charm School. The topic is Juju Troubleshooting 1. We're here with Charles Butler, Marco Chappi, and Matt Brasek. So the stage is all yours, guys.
All right, great. Thank you, Jose. So today we're going to be covering a topic that is quite important. I know a lot of people, as we sit in IRC, have brought up how do we troubleshoot Juju? How do we troubleshoot charms when things go wrong? So this will be part one of a two-part charm school. So if you're listening in live, feel free to ask questions in #Juju on freenode.net. If you're watching later on, go to freenode.net and #Juju and still ask questions. Otherwise, you can also email us at our mailing list, juju@list.ubuntu.com, or ask questions on askubuntu.com, tagged with the Juju tag. So I guess we're just going to jump right into it. We're going to cover a wider range of topics. So with that, I guess we'll start sharing. I'll start sharing a screen, and we'll kind of troubleshoot what happens when, or how do you troubleshoot when bootstrapping goes wrong. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. Can you guys see that okay?
Yep.
So I just bootstrapped an environment, and it was supposed to fail, but it worked. I was joking about how everything I'm going to try to break will actually work today, and it seems that's the case. So when you're bootstrapping, if you're bootstrapping an environment, I'm going to go ahead and say Juju switch. By the way, a fantastic command is if you want to see all the available environments, you can type Juju switch L, which will list all the environments you have, and you can switch to whichever one you want. So I know, for instance, this one is definitely a broken environment. So a lot of problems can be solved by just spelling the commands correctly. So I'm going to go ahead and Juju bootstrap. So if you're bootstrapping and the bootstrap comes back with an error, something like Juju failed to bootstrap or something of that fashion, there are several things to get started with troubleshooting on why it broke. Wow, it's actually working. This cloud technically doesn't even exist anymore. I'm not sure how this is actually happening. So we're going to pretend like this failed halfway through. Uh-oh, something happened. Bootstrap failed. It'll try to clean up itself, and then it'll exit. The best way to figure out what's going on is to run Bootstrap with the debug flag. What this will do is give you quite a lot more information about what's going on in the process of bootstrapping. So I'm going to run this against my local environment. We're going to kind of troubleshoot it from there. Oh, well, I have to actually use the debug flag. So what those do is it'll pump out a lot more information than what you may be used to seeing. A lot of this information is super helpful to understand what's going on behind this whole bootstrap process, the whole spinning up a provisioning a server. It does contain some sensitive information. Sometimes access keys and private keys can be leaked in here. We're working to remove those from the debug output, but just be aware that when you're using this and helping people out, warn them that this may have keys in there, and then also remove those keys. Typically, you'll find them at the very top of the file, right during the initial bootstrapping stuff. So let me scroll all the way back up here. Somewhere in here is usually where it says, this is the data I'm using for this class. So just be aware of that. I believe as of 1.20 going forward, you won't have that problem anymore. If you're having problems with bootstrapping and getting weird errors, first thing to do is run debug. This output's very verbose, but typically we'll see things like error or warnings in the side here. These are all infos and debugs. There's actually no warnings in here. In fact, we got a successful bootstrap, which was great for this purpose. So that's the first thing to do. There's tons of problems that you may run into with various providers. Well, not tons of problems, let me rephrase that. There are some known issues that you can run into on different providers. Probably the most problematic because it's the most unique is the local provider. That one uses LXC containers to spin up cloud-like instances on your own laptop or machine to emulate what you would do on a public cloud. So a lot of times when you run a deploy, you may find that containers get stuck in pending. There's issues where you can't connect or things never seem to be moving along. This could be contributed to a number of factors. Most common ones are if you have a slower internet stream, if you have a lot of stuff that's sitting in your bandwidth pipe, the first time you do a deployment, it actually has to download about a 250 megabyte disk image. So the best thing to do is check to see if you have a disk image and if it's potentially out of date. This is held inside of the cache directory in var cache.
I think it's var cache, yeah.
Yeah, var cache. So if you look inside this directory, there's a bunch of different directories. Depending on which version of Juju you're bootstrapping, whether it's trusty or precise, you'll see a cloud precise and a cloud trusty. And of course, I've done my local provider over many series, so I also have cloud saucy. If I go inside my cloud trusty directory, I see that this image was downloaded May 28th. It's a relatively recent image. As of this video, it's June 6th. So I haven't had any problems with local provider, but a lot of times these images can become out of date. Again, it's a known issue. We're addressing it in future releases of Juju. We're actually building a whole suite of tools to make deploying stuff with the local provider very easy to manage. If you find that this image is more than, say, a couple weeks to a month old or older, go ahead and just delete it, destroy your environment, and do a rebootstrap and a redeploy, and it should download a fresh image for you to use. If you don't find any caches in here, whether it's inside Cloud Precise, Cloud Trusty, no downloaded files, that's your first problem. Is you don't actually have an operating system image to bootstrap off of, and that's where you want to troubleshoot why isn't Juju downloading that. Let's go to Cloud Precise. This one's considerably older. I haven't bootstrapped Precise in a long time. I haven't deployed a Precise service on a local provider. Odds are, if I attempted to deploy something right now, we might actually get an error. I'm going to try. It may or may not error. Oh, goodness. But we can talk about what's actually going on in the background now. So before I run this command, I'm actually going to show you something. So as of recent versions of Juju, Juju will now create an LXC container and clone that container in order to provide faster, more responsive local provider. LXC is just very lightweight containers, like I mentioned earlier. Sometimes during the creation of these images, it can fail. So here's a couple of tools to help you figure out if you have the proper template image, if the template image is in an error, and how to get rid of it if it is an errored state. So the command we use to look at all of our templates is sudo lxc ls fancy. Fancy will just give you information about all the units that are running. So if I do this, I see that I have a couple of containers that I actually created myself that are outside the scope of Juju, but I also have a Juju Precise template and a Juju Trusty template. So when you first do a deploy or bootstrap, it downloads that image, and then it creates this template. And then from here, it clones a template. If a template is in a running state for more than 10 minutes when you first observe it, there's something wrong with that template. It's in an errored state. Templates should take no more than a few minutes to spin up and then turn off. If you have a template running, then it can't actually clone it because you can't clone from a running template. So that's where your issue is when you have a lot of services that are stuck in pending in your local provider. You can delete these by running lxc destroy, and then you use the end flag and give it a name. I'm going to destroy my Precise template. I get to use sudo with all these commands. So if I run the lxc ls with the fancy flag again, I don't have a Precise template anymore. So if I would go ahead and run juju deploy cs Precise MySQL, what I'll notice is when I run this again, I have a Precise template. It recreated it from the downloaded cached image it has. If I watch this, it'll actually turn on in a few seconds, and this is where Juju creates the base image, and then it'll turn it off and start cloning it for my use. So now it's running. So if you see these images running for more than 10 minutes at a time, odds are there's a problem with that image. You'll want to stop it, destroy it, and redeploy Bootstrap again. And the entire time this is running, you'll notice that the MySQL is stuck in a pending state, and there's no real information about the machine. So if you see this, where you have a machine that's created in Juju but doesn't have much information outside of a pending state for the instance, for more than a few minutes, I'd say give it about 10 minutes, depending on how much bandwidth you have, depending on how recent ago you did your last deploy. So if you're first-time user, the very first deploy will take a few minutes to download that image, create the template. If it lasts any longer than that, then odds are something is going on in the background, and that's the places you want to look. So it is still running. We're going to come back and make sure if it actually did come up okay or not, but we'll move on to a few more troubleshooting topics while that's going on. Matt and Chuck, anything else you guys have about the local provider that you come across when you guys are using it stuff?
Well, a lot of times I'll look at the logs when I get a problem or something's going on. So we should just point out where the log files are located.
Oh, yeah, fantastic. That's actually a great idea. Thank you, Matt. The local provider is really unique in that, unlike every other provider, we have to SSH into a machine and go into the logs directory and find stuff. The local provider actually puts all the logs in one directory for you. So if you actually go into your .juju directory, inside there will be a folder called whatever the name of the local environment is. In this case, when I deployed, if you remember from Juju Switch, it was local. So there's a local directory here. Inside my local directory, I've got several different directories. The most important thing being is the log directory. If I look inside the log directory, I have the logs for everything that's in this deployed environment. Since I don't have any deployed services, we're still building the template images and everything, I only have a machine 0 log, but I can inspect this log to see what Juju is doing, what the Bootstrap node is doing to provision my machine. So if we take a quick brief look at this, quite a bit of information will come out of this. A lot of this stuff, again, is debug information where it may not mean much to you, but in the hands of someone who knows how to read these logs, as cryptic as they may appear, it actually can reveal quite a lot of information about what's going on in the background. So I see there's a couple of errors. These may or may not be red herrings. I'm going to go ahead and run Juju status again, see where we are. It looks like we have more information. So odds are if we run sudo lxc ls, okay.
Did we lose Marco?
I think we did.
Okay. All right. Looks like his he'll have to log back in. Let's see.
So he was basically telling people that once Juju status shows more information about the machine, it should be, it should actually be
great
inside.
Point, Matt. Anything else for you guys before we start diving into some other stuff? What?
We thought we lost you, but you're back.
Marco, we lost you for a minute there.
Now we lost him.
Okay.
So we should just wait a couple minutes. He'll be back.
Yep.
While Marco is coming back, I will remind you that you can always visit us at ubuntuonair.com. You will find the current video and the web chat widget, so you can connect to the RC channel and ask any questions you have during the sessions. You can check ubuntuonair.com/calendar for future Ubuntu on Air events, which may include Q&As, more Juju Charm schools, and more of this stuff. You can subscribe to us at youtube.com/Ubuntu on Air. to check more of the videos we've been doing around. We've been around for a while, so just feel free to check all the videos.
Sorry about that. Google decided that I could not rejoin the Hangout. I was not allowed to anymore. So I'm back again. Apologies. I'm not sure. I know I was drifting in and out. My camera decided it was time to stop working as well. Everything but Juju seems to be breaking today, which is a great proof that demo gods exist, and they are shining down upon us. Besides that, though, I'm not sure where I left off. Briefly to recap, Juju.juju/local/log is where you can find all the logs for your running instances. LXCLS fancy is a great command. Things are running again, templates are off, machines are running, and Juju status shows that we have MySQL set up and running as we expect to. Was there anything else you guys have come across for troubleshooting on local that we can touch on?
Well, why don't we give them the full suite of the LXC commands? So there's LXC-LS, LXC-stop, and there's LXC-destroy. Is there any other LXC commands that would be useful in this case?
Stopping and destroying are probably the most powerful ones you'll ever need to use. This is the full suite of LXC commands you can use. A lot of them you won't ever really need to. Stopping, you can't destroy a running instance, so you must stop it first. If you ever get something that's hung or want to manually remove it, stop, then destroy. Outside of that, that's pretty much it. LXC is a fantastic tool. If you just want to create really lightweight containers to get going, but you don't want to use Juju for whatever reason, I recommend looking up how to do LXC create and clone. It's really a powerful tool for people who want isolation without all the overhead. Again, great question, Matt. Anything else you guys can think of?
What are the? Can you tell what ports Ubuntu is using, or excuse me, Juju is using when you bootstrap?
There are defaults that are used. I mean, you can sit and watch netstat if you really wanted to, but the best way to find out, I guess, would be to look at the documentation. I think reveals what the default ports are.
Okay.
You can also look at the upstart script, which is a little more than you want to dig into for Juju B. Actually, this is a good point to touch on as well. If you have a local provider, I'll get to your question in a second, Matt.
Yep, no problem.
But yeah, if you have a local provider and you suspend your computer, you restart your computer, you do something that interrupts the LXC provider, and you have an already provisioned LXC local provider, and you can't connect to it anymore, you get DB timeout, which I can simulate here in just a second. This is MySQL running, but if I run Juju status, if I spell it correctly, after a few seconds I get a timeout error saying, what? Seriously? Man, I cannot win today. Oh man, I really can't win. I'm sorry, give me 1 second. Okay, let's try this. They keep fixing all the things that used to break in LXC. I don't know how to simulate the stuff now. I guess it's good. It doesn't work anymore. That it works now. So sometimes this will happen when you restart your computer. You run Juju status. Takes forever and a day. It never comes back. It ends up timing out. So you think, okay, I don't have an environment. But then you run Juju Bootstrap and it says you already have an environment. My terminal's waiting to come back. Juju status is hung essentially. The way local provider works is you have two upstart jobs that sit on your computer. So what you can run is sudo initctl list Juju. You'll see two running upstart jobs. One's called JujuDB, your name local, and the other is called Juju Agent, your name local. The agent is basically the bootstrap node that you communicate with, the API server, and the DB is where you store all your changes. So if any one of these two processes are stopped, you'll want to go ahead and start them. You can just type sudo start and the name of the process, in this case Juju agent DB. If I run Juju status, in a few seconds things will kick back online, and you'll see that everything is back up and running again once it does a requery of everything. So that's how you can salvage already running Juju environments. If for whatever reason you lose power or you restart your computer, things of that fashion happen. So as for ports, there are a few ports that are used on your machine. They're actually inside the upstart scripts that we just showed you there. So Juju DB. MongoDB, which is our database store, uses 37017. And then the Juju agent uses another port that's not easily found in here. It's in the documentation. I can find a link for you guys in a second. But that's documented as far as what the default ports are, and you can actually change those. So you can honestly run simultaneous local providers, multiple ones, on your machine. I think we once got up to 10 running on a pretty beefy machine nonetheless, but simultaneously so that people could do isolation and test multiple clouds without actually having to use any one cloud. And the link for that is, it is under the docs for the configuration for LXC provider. The ports that are used are 8040, 8041, and then the 37017 that we saw earlier.
Okay.
Interesting note to add to the port discussion is that if you're running very militant UFW firewall rules, you may want to disable that or allow those ports to be forwarded. I've had that bite me in the past too.
Another fantastic point. Thank you. Yes, UWF does mess with this stuff quite often.
Right, I've had that problem as well. So just make sure you enable these ports. You're using local.
Or temporarily disable UWF. That's obviously the nuclear option. By far the easiest one as well. But if you have the patience for configuring UWF, open up those port access so that you can go in there. Another great point. Goodness, we could probably talk about local provider troubleshooting alone probably all day. Any other things you guys can think of? I mean, we can jump around for sure if you guys think of something later. Don't feel shy. Same with you guys out there watching. Questions, feel free to ask them.
Actually, I came up with another good one, Marco, is whenever I first got started, my local area network was 10.0.3.0, and that seemed to collide with LXC and its default network configuration.
Yep.
So
how did you do that?
The fix for that one was I just changed my Juju network by looking at the configuration files. I believe it's an etc Juju.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
You can change the IP net that you're on in that configuration. I'm looking up the config right now. I'm sorry I don't have this on hand before I mentioned it.
Or is it part of LXC? I think LXC is 10.3.3.1 by default.
Part of it in etc LXC, and it talks about your virtual interface that you want to use, and then there's another configuration file that I'm still looking for.
Yeah. I thought you just switched your home network, actually. So I'm glad you found an answer for that.
Nope. I'm going to continue looking for this, and whenever I have that, I'll pop back in with the solution.
There's a question around, well, not actually a question. They're saying it would be nice if you can start Hadoop in local because it's never been successful. Is that like a known issue?
I know Hadoop is very resource hungry. I've not had any problems with it. I can try. Let's try. Let's break some stuff. Juju. I'm pretty sure that's not all you have to do. I think actually, let me find the bundle for Hadoop. There is a Hadoop bundle out there that should get us what we're looking for. Deploy Hadoop locally. I've always just gone to the cloud, given how crazy hungry, resource intensive I know it can be. So I'm just at jujucharms.com. I can show you this stuff. So I'm just going to go ahead and search for a bundle for Hadoop. Actually, there it is, a Hadoop cluster bundle. So yeah, this looks like what we want to do to get Hadoop deployed. Let's go to the README. Let's see, how do we do this? Usage. scale out references. I want to deploy it, so let's go ahead and run Juju deployer. I don't have quick start installing here, unfortunately. So I should be able to just type Juju deployer, the environment. Oh, that's not going to fly. It'll fail. Good enough. Is local. That's the configuration file we're going to use. So I'll run this now. It'll take a few minutes to stand up. Or not.
Actually, the user was experiencing the old bug where you couldn't fire up instances with LXC containers that are in trusty.
Oh,
because
that should be resolved since then. I think I had
that is fixed. That is fixed. Oh.
This is a precise charm. I should be able to deploy. Well, Hadoop's not in Trusty yet. I should be able to deploy MySQL from Trusty.
Just deploy Ubuntu.
That doesn't do anything.
I know.
I'm going to have a second of silence here to date back to the LXC network question. The file looks pretty straightforward. It's got configuration options for the LXC network mask and the bridge device, and that is located in etc default LXC TACnet. Should be this guy right here.
That's actually fantastic. I'm glad you found that. I didn't know about that. That should help resolve quite a few people's problems. I know they're trying to forwarding and such. Cool. Thanks, Chuck. That's fantastic. To get back to your question, AXI. Oh, AXI sys. Okay, let's tell you that. Which version of Ubuntu are you? I mean, which version of Juju are you running? If you've not tried it with 1.19, I would suggest trying that. I know Trusty and 1.18 kind of came out at the same time. There may have been a few qualms with that. Cool. But it looks like that bug may have been resolved for you. So give it a try and let us know. Either reply to that mailing list article you have that you linked us, or ping us here in IRC. So we're at the bottom of the hour. You guys have any more things we can think of for our local provider? I know there's probably quite a few more tips that we can pump out. So if you have them now, we can get through them. Otherwise, we could try to take in some other tacks as well.
I've got one that's somewhat related. There was a user that joined yesterday that was having issues with the Vagrant box after they did a Vagrant halt. Whenever they subsequently restarted the Vagrant box, they were unable to connect to the Juju GUI forwarding. And the fix for that is for one, to suspend your machine instead of halting it, so that way it keeps all of the port forwarding. But another option that you can take if you have shutdown is to run the Vagrant provision command, and that will go back through and set up the port forwarding that is required for reaching the Juju GUI, and that's something that I discovered last night.
Okay, cool. That's good. I think we might want to add that to the Vagrant docs as well if we haven't already, Chuck. I feel like people might actually run into that quite frequently, given I even ran Vagrant halt once because that's what I thought was the right way to shut stuff down. Cool. So I'm going to. So let's see if we broke any charms. Do we have any broken charms yet? I'm going to deploy a broken. So I know we've gone over troubleshooting charms quite often. It's something that we've done several charm schools on. We'll probably do several more on as well. It's something that we get asked a lot. How do you diagnose what went wrong, and then how do you fix what went wrong in a production environment when you deploy a charm? So there's quite a lot of ways to do that. I'm deploying again on my local provider, but this applies for virtually all the providers out there. So let's go ahead and I'm going to check on our status here. It's still spinning up. The machine is started, so I have to compliment the core guys on what they've done a fantastic job this last 6 months is making the local provider just really fast. I typed the Couchbase command maybe 30 seconds ago. It's already got a machine. It's up and running. Juju is doing its thing now. It's just waiting on the charm to do the install step. So while it says pending here, it really means it's installing. It's doing the very first hook. This is just loads faster than what it was when we first started out, let alone 6 months ago. So they've done a bang-up job on making local provider really something that's actually quite nice to use. So I'm just going to wait a few seconds for this to come back and give us an error. So I'm going to use this command. I adore this command. It makes watching so much faster. So the Couchbase is still pending. While this is loading, one thing that's bitten us quite a bit that I think the core guys are addressing now, but it might bite you as well, is sometimes if you destroy an environment and you go in, you change your environment's YAML file, you make some modifications, you change access keys, change regions, you rebootstrap, you're still getting the same errors. Access denied, bootstrapping in the wrong region. It's something that happens quite commonly, and the reason why is because there's two environment YAML files, or there's actually two environment data files, one that you create and then one that gets created upon Bootstrap and persists across multiple bootstraps. So real briefly, if we go into your Juju folder, there's quite a lot of stuff. But if you go into the environments directory, you'll see there's a list of these things called JMs. Right now I only have one for the local provider. If you destroy an environment and you change settings and it's still not taking hold, check this directory to make sure there's not a JM file sitting in here with your name of your environment. If there is, simply delete it and then run a bootstrap again. It'll create a new JM file with the updated credentials. I know this is something that the core guys are working on resolving as well. It's on their bug tracker stuff. So it might already be fixed now, but it might be something that's still working in progress. But that's something to be aware of when you're editing and managing Juju environments. So there's an error for Couchbase. So if we run this, we see that Couchbase has a hook install, a hook failed. It failed to install during the install hook. So I'm going to go ahead and run a few things. Since I want to actually see what happened, I can run Juju debug log. This gives you a whole lot of information across your entire environment. It gives you basically, this is the funnel of all logs in your entire environment running at one time. So as you can see, it's quite active. Lots of stuff going on from all different machines that are working. You can filter this by having an include-exclude. So you can exclude certain entities. You can include certain logging modules. It's still quite a lot of log information. What I typically tell people to do is either Juju SSH. So you can Juju SSH into Couchbase, which is a unit. But since we're going to be troubleshooting what went wrong in this hook, go ahead and just do yourself a favor and launch a debug hooks session. On debug hooks, it's a fantastic tool. I'm going to touch it again on it briefly here just because it is so awesome. What this does is it gives you a tmux session inside the server, and from another window I'm going to run Juju resolved. I'm going to tell it to retry Couch. Here I notice that it drops me into an install hook, so I can actually run hooks install. I can see what happens during the install hook, why it's breaking, and what exactly is going on, and then I can proceed to edit and rerun over and over again, so I can kind of fix on the server live. So if you have a live deployment, a hook goes wrong, you can kind of see what went wrong. You can poke at it, figure out how to fix it, and then eventually put that fix into the charm and submit it back to the charm store. So I'm going to wait to see what happens during this install session here. But yeah, so debug hooks is a great tool for that. You can also check the log. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to this window here by running in var log Juju. The name of the unit is case unit Couchbase 0. I can actually see what happened in the log, and I can go back through and figure out where did this break, where did it get an error. So let's go back. at the time. Looks like it was doing some package installations. More debug and info. Scrolling. Grab some stuff. Looks like it's downloading a file. It doesn't look very pretty. Waiting for the error. Here we go. So it gets an error. Hook failed, 8 status 1. So here we see the error kind of popped up right around here at the bottom. Right around here where it's trying to start and stop Couchbase. From there I can kind of infer what went wrong. If I do this, I see we still got an error. So at this point we can open up the hooks file, we can edit it, we can figure out what went wrong, we can fix it. In this case, it's because it's using this very old, archaic form of checking if commands exist. Open port does definitely exist. It always will. So we can actually right quit that, run hooks install again, and it'll work now. So debug hooks is a great way to help resolve issues that are going on. What kind of stuff do you guys run into when you're troubleshooting deployments? Like, you guys have any tips that we can give out?
Well, I use debug hooks quite a bit, and just to see what's going on, I often have to check the exit status. If the script is written in Bash, you can turn on set -x, and that'll print out all the commands that are running, like you have here.
Yep.
Some of the hooks don't actually have that turned on, so you can turn that on and print out stuff that's going on. However, if you get a Python script, it's not as easy to see all the commands that are running. You just have to put in some printouts and try to see what's going on in that case. Chuck, did you want to talk about the Python debugger?
We can speak to that. Another thing that really helped me early on, before the Python debugger plugin existed, was importing IPDB. I would issue a pip install IPDB and just include that at the header, and that will print out a very verbose stack trace as to what happens whenever it's failing, and it'll tell you kind of the call stack that it was going through before it exited. So if you understand at least some basic Python, that'll definitely help you follow the control flow of where it failed. Now, one of our community members, Jorge Mibalski, wrote a Python debugger plugin or charm helper that you can now include in your charm for development. And at the top of your Python-based hook, you just import, or from charm helpers, import contrib Python tac debug, I believe is the helper. And what it will do is it spins up a telnet-based server that you can then connect to using just telnet or any other socket-based connection software, and it allows you to, and it launches an interactive Python shell for you to re-execute the hook and kind of step through it and debug it.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yep.
So, it's fantastic. There's lots of tools for helping write charms. So another thing that we have a lot of times is when people are done with services. Let's go back here. So I'm going to run Juju status again. I've got quite a few things that are deployed in my environment. I've got lots of MySQLs. MySQL on Trusty is deployed. MySQL not on Trusty, precise. Sorry. Hadoop was deployed. I've also got Couchbase up here. That's what we're working on right now. So tons of machines that are deployed. A lot of times we run Juju destroy service. For instance, I'm going to destroy MySQL. It'll take a few seconds. If we run Juju status MySQL, we'll see it's still there. It's in this thing called a dying state. The life is now dying. It's kind of this weird yin and yang thing, life, dying, etc. But eventually it'll go away and it'll remove itself from the service. So if I run Juju status MySQL, it's not there anymore. Juju status shows that MySQL is gone. We have now Trustfall, Hadoop, and Couchbase. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to wait for that to finish. I'm going to also destroy. Another thing you could do is if you want to destroy with extreme prejudice, just get it out. There is a there is a command to just destroy a unit. So for instance, if you want to get rid of, let's say, MySQL trustfall /0, and it won't move at all, it won't budge, you can actually Juju terminate machine, the number 3. If you run that without any parameters, it says you can't do that because this unit is assigned to it. So it's warning you that if you try to destroy this, you're going to lose this unit. It will be gone. And in this day and age, Juju, you can actually have multiple services co-located on one machine as well. So, of course, this is the giant hammer for a little tack nail. But if you had to and you were clear that you wanted to get rid of it, you can run Juju terminate machine 3, and you can pass a force flag. This will completely wipe the machine out without warning, without confirmation. It'll remove that unit. If we run Juju status again, we see that we still have the service deployed to the canvas, but it has no more units added to it, and machine 3 is completely gone. Well, it is almost gone. It is in a dead state. Its life is dead now. I bet if we run Juju status again, it'll be reaped, and it is now gone. So we have 0, 1, 2, and 4. Let's see how this is going. Okay, good, this is done. So let's exit, let's move on. Okay, great. So if we run Juju status again, we see that I've got Couchbase. Couchbase is installed. I'm going to go ahead and run Juju destroy service Couchbase. All right, so it says it's in a dying state again. It definitely is trying to die. The unit is now trying to die as well, so everything's trying to die. But we could walk away, and we can come back 30 minutes later, it's still going to be dying. And that whole time it's still serving. So this Juju is event based. There's several things that could be contributing to this. For instance, if the Couchbase charm is in an error, so right now it's not in an error state, but if it said error, it won't actually finish destruction until you acknowledge that error. You'll have to run Juju Couchbase /0, but it says it's not in an error state. Another possibility is that a service that Couchbase is connected to is in an error state. Again, all events are queued. So it has to break the relation to that service before it can finish its final dying sequence. So if that other service is in an error state, it won't actually get to the final stages of breaking the relation until you resolve that error state as well. That's something to be aware of. I don't have any of the services in an error state, though. Another possibility is, let's say you've lost network connectivity, something that happens quite frequently. Right now I'm in a debug hook session, which means that it's trying to die, but it's stuck on config changed. So I'm going to do something you should not do to debug sessions, and I'm just going to close my debug session. And I'm no longer attached to it now. So if I look, it's still in an install, oh, actually it's in a, that's interesting, it's in a hook change, it's in a hook error. Let's resolve that Couchbase. Still dying, still stuck. Let me try something. So I'm trying to connect again back to my debug hook sessions, and I can't. There's one running in the background. So this happens quite frequently when you lose connection to the server. I have a debug hook session that's running. It's trapping all of my hooks, and I cannot get past them. How do I resolve this? What you can do is Juju SSH into the... if you do a testing, you'll see you actually have quite a few... Where are they? Flock processes. No flock processes. But you have a tmux session that's running at least. So if you see a tmux session, if you see any kind of processes that are like that, a lot of times you'll see something called a process that has the word flock in it. That's the same thing. If you kill these off, alternatively you can reconnect to them as well. You just type biobu. If you type biobu as root, it'll actually put you back inside the debug hook session. So you can pick up where you left off, which is fantastic. Mainly just typing exit quite a few times. Okay, exit. Alternatively, you can kill the tmux session. All those should clear that out. Let's go back over here. Run Juju status. We're still in a failed state, so I'm going to resolve Couchbase again. You may have to do this several times depending on the state of the machine. Now it's in a started state, but it's still dying. Let's see if it actually dies off. Now it's stopped, and now it's gone. So that completed it. So if you have things like that where events aren't being processed because there's an error state either on the unit or the unit's connected to, that will contribute to the unit not dying. So if you see something that's in a life state of dying and it's not gone after several minutes, odds are there's something going on there. It could be a debug hook session that's rogue. It could be errored relation somewhere else in the infrastructure. So make sure you search all the places it can be connected to and resolve those errors going forward. That's one of the problems. Anything else you guys can think of we want to cover in this session? We will have a part 2, which will go more in depth into even more troubleshooting. There's quite a lot to cover in general. Let's check any questions in IRC so far.
No questions in IRC.
Cool. So we have a few minutes left. Do you guys want to cover anything else you want to talk about in this few minutes of time left? Otherwise, we can go ahead and wrap up, but that's about what I had. I guess what I want to cover is if you want to get rid of a bootstrap server, an environment rather, if you want to destroy an environment and for some reason it's just not going away, it's not cooperating, destroy environment actually has a force flag. So this will actually connect to the provider directly and destroy the machines that it provisioned during its run. So for instance, if you have a bootstrap server that's not responding and you want to destroy it, Juju destroy environment connects to the bootstrap node in order to disseminate the destroy all services command. You can actually bypass all of that by running Juju destroy environment force and the name of the environment you want. In this case, I'm destroying my local environment. This will go through and connect directly to the provider from your machine and turn off the machines it turned on, destroy them, and clean them up. So it's a great way to get around a bootstrap environment is hung or not responsive. How do I resolve that? Very similar to the local provider, you just SSH into the bootstrap node. Can't use Juju SSH, you'll have to use another method. Find the IP address and log into it. Check to make sure the upstart jobs, the ones that start with Juju, are running, like we did similarly for the local provider, and restart them. But if it's still hung and you want to just clear it out, the force flag is a great way to just connect directly to the provider, bypass all of that, and get those machines turned down. So if we run sudo lxc ls fancy, I've got no more stuff that I've started. My templates are there. That just makes provisioning faster the next time around. But no more machines are running. Completely wipe and clean the service for the next bootstrap. Anything else you guys want to cover this session? We're having a follow-up one next Friday, which will be the 13th, the same time, same place. You guys are welcome to come. We'll cover even more topics of troubleshooting and answer your questions and field them then. So we'll give a few seconds for anyone in IRC to ask any lingering questions. Again, if you just missed this or if you want to ask more questions, we're always available in the pound Juju room on Freenode, the mailing list, which is juju@lists.ubuntu.com, and as well on Ask Ubuntu with the tag Juju. Anywhere else? I think that's about it that I can think of. So feel free to reach out if you have questions. We're always looking to expand our documentation on how to handle troubleshooting and, of course, fix common issues that people are running into. These shouldn't be the norm. These should be just what we're experiencing now, how to fix them, and then hopefully resolve and get to a place where we don't have to actually really do much troubleshooting because we've resolved all these outstanding issues. I don't think I have anything else. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, of course, Jose, for helping us run Ubuntu on Air. And thank you, Chuck, for joining today. I really appreciate you guys' help. And we'll see you guys in a week.
All right.
Everybody.
Yes, Marco said we'll be back in a week for Juju Troubleshooting 2. Same place, ubuntuonair.com. Make sure to check out our ubuntuonair.com/calendar. Subscribe to us at youtube.com/ubuntuonair and follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/ubuntuonair. We'll be posting constant updates there. So see you next week.